right. I'm hoping that you can hear me. If you can hear me, maybe you can write something in the chat box for me. Yes. Oh, and you can see me as well. Fabulous. I don't know what happened. I think there was an internet issue there, but we are back. And apologies for starting a little bit later. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you for your patience. And well, let me start first with introducing myself. I'm Anna. I'm an ELT consultant and I'm based in Dubai. I've given you all my details here. If you want to connect after the presentation, feel free on Twitter, LinkedIn, or my Facebook page. And if you have any questions, or we have lost a bit of time, so I probably have to reduce the information I have for you. So good. Now, I was going to say if the internet falls over, but it already did, so maybe when it happens again, don't panic, be patient, move around a little bit, and hopefully we'll be back. Yeah, you never know, because I think here in Dubai, everything is still online and everybody's normally online at this time. Yeah, so that might well be the same for you. So good. So what are we going to do today? I want to start with a very quick connector activity, similar to a warmer, but I call it a connector because it personalizes my night because it happens with your students. So therefore, I think it's really important that we try to personalize activities at the start. Now, I don't know if the video is frozen. I see myself freezing, so if you don't mind, I think I'm going to turn off my camera if I know how that works. Or we try again, see what happens. If it gets really bad, Anka, please let me know so we can actually make sure that the sound is clear for people. Yes, a quick connector to connect with all of you because it's amazing that you're all here today. Then we're going to look at our context 2020 Young Learners Engagement before we look at that ABC of how we can engage them. And then hopefully there is some time for questions as well. Yeah. I'll make sure that Fisher International gets the presentation. So if you have any questions, if the slides do freeze, you get the chance later on to look at that as well. So you do get my presentation. So don't panic, right? That's the most important thing. Good. So let's have a look then at 2020 so far. I don't know what it's been like for you, but for me it was quite an interesting start. January, lovely, everybody was at school, all good. And then all of a sudden in February, things started to change here in Dubai. Our holiday was moved forward to March. And actually, since April, kids went back to school, but everything has been online. So I don't know if that has been the same for you, but from April until about July, we all taught online. Now, the battery is not for me, but luckily we had a holiday, and I think all of you had a holiday as well. And I see that lots of you, Luminita, you had the same situation, Dinu, Diana, we were online. The holiday, the time to recharge for me was a way to actually rebuild my knowledge to get ready for what the rest of 2020. So yes, I did some yoga, I had some walks on the beach, but there was also a lot of reading, watching webinars, so at least that I felt that I was ready for whatever was going to come next. So my question to you is, what did you do in your holidays to recharge your battery and get ready for the back to school events we're actually going through at the moment? Gardening, Mara, that's awesome. That's very relaxing, right? That really is a good way of recharging your batteries. Watching webinars, Alina, rebuilding your knowledge, and maybe also recharging your motivation. Learning, going to the beach, cooking, traveling. Oh, Ramona, I wish there was some traveling. In Dubai, there is a lot of sand in the desert or on the beach, but there's not that much travel here. Hiking, Monica, that sounds fabulous. And again, Barb, watching webinars. I think that is really something a lot of us did to make sure that we were ready for whatever is going to come our way. Yeah. Good. So let's see then what is going to come our way. Because the next question is really for you. We had that online teaching. We had a little holiday. But what is going to happen next? And because I don't live in Romania, I don't really know what your context is, but also you've got quite a big country. After your holidays, back to school. Can you use the chat box to let me know, are you going to go back face to face, or are you already back face to face? Maybe online, maybe it's going to be blended, a bit online and a bit in the classroom. Maybe it's going to be more like a hybrid model with some students being at home and others in the classroom working together. Or maybe you're number 5 and you say, I still don't know. I wish I knew. Corina, so you're number 5, right? You don't know yet what's going to happen. And I think there's actually quite a lot of schools worldwide in that situation. We don't know what is going to happen. The hybrid model is becoming quite popular. Maybe 15 kids in the classroom, 15 children zooming in. If you have technology, that's a good option as well. Good. Well, Dana, exactly. We are going to start face to face, but it doesn't really matter which model you have chosen or your school has chosen. I think in the end, we're all in the same water. We all have that insecurity. Okay, maybe we start face to face, but how long is it going to last? I think we all fear that we're going to have less opportunities with our children to actually expose them to that language, to use the language together. And then, of course, we all are in the same floating device here. We all need to engage our learners so we create motivation and willingness for them to learn. So it doesn't really matter which option you are. We all have a job to do, and that is as soon as the kids come back to the classroom in whatever form, that we are going to be able to engage them. Yeah. Now, I saw you had a lot of webinars today already from Ellen and I think Alex as well, all about engagement. So I'm not going to hammer on too much. I'm just going to ask you, so we are all on the same page before we continue, what engagement is. And you don't need to type a sentence for me, but I'd like you to think about what words you think you're going to see in my definition. So our job is to engage our learners, and what does that mean for you? Can you type a word in the chat box for me? Kola Safari, commitment, connecting, empathy, responsibility, involvement. Lucicia, connection, yeah. Interest, motivation, attention. Yes, the holy grail in that way. If there's no attention, there's no room for engagement. There will be no motivation. Lovely. Dedication. Good. Have a look at my definitions and check if any of these words you just wrote in the chat box are actually in my definitions. Enthusiasm, Irina, I like that one. So here are 3 different definitions for engagement. Any of your words in there? Oh, Corina, I know happiness is not Right. I have no idea what's going on, but I disappeared, or you disappeared. I don't know. Alina is saying we should get used to it, and maybe that's the way it is. Teaching online has lots of challenges. Good. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to turn off my camera because there is extra bandwidth, and you just never know if that is the problem. Yeah. So Anka, can you let me know if you can hear me or anyone else in the chat box? That'd be really good. Yes, good. I'm going to turn my camera off. I'm very sorry, but I don't want to take the risk that it's going to happen again. Now you should still be able to see my slides, hopefully. Yes. Lovely. Good. So we spoke about engagement. Now, I think all these definitions of engagement are fine. They're all from different research books. Personally, I like the last one because it talks about being fully absorbed. And I think quite often when we talk about engagement, we talk about students are busy, but that is not the same. When we want our learners to be engaged, of course, there is this behavioral engagement. They are on task. But of course, we also want them to be emotionally engaged. So they're interested. They want to learn. And of course, we want them to be cognitively engaged. So they actually learn something. They are thinking. Yeah. So good. So that engagement is a very important thing. You might have heard today already why it is so important. Because if our students are not engaged in those three areas, emotionally, cognitively, and behaviorally, there is less learning happening. So honestly, that engagement is really sort of your candy floss for learning, because when you're engaged and fully absorbed, your brain is open and actually new information sticks to your brain. Yeah, so if you're not engaged, you're not going to remember things very easily. It doesn't become very stickable. So it's important that we engage our learners. Now, talking about young learners, if I want to engage them, I think we need to be very much aware of the age group we are teaching, because ages are different. What age group are you teaching at the moment? So we can see if we're actually talking about a similar age level, because it really depends. A 6-year-old is different to a 12-year-old in level of engagement. Alina, all of them. Ramona, you've got 6 till 15, secondary. Right, 8 till 14, a very broad age range, right? So they're very different, of course. If you look at all this terminology, young learners, still if you're 17 or 15, you're still regarded a young learner, but you're actually upper secondary. Yeah, so what I want to talk about today and the activities we're going to do are very much appropriate for that primary age group, 6 till 10, possibly 11, possibly 5. You can adapt some of these activities, Claudia, maybe to suit your 15-year-olds, but some of these activities, that age group will really think, well, teacher, serious. Yeah, so keep in mind that when we talk about these activities, I have sort of focused on this age group, primary learners between 6 to 10, give it a year. Yeah. Good. So nice to hear that you've got actually a very varied age group that you teach. But thinking about 6 till 10-year-olds, I think this is a really important question. Yeah. What engages our young learners in the classroom? And I was going to do this in a very interesting way, but I don't know if it's going to work, but we can give it a go. Don't type your answer in just yet. Hold your horses. Because when you have teenagers, and a lot of you are having teenagers, if you teach them online or in the classroom and you have access to a device, check out Mentimeter. We're not going to use that because we have enough trouble today with Adobe as it is. Normally in my classroom, if I have 20 students, I get them to turn on the microphone and they could say something to me or record it in WhatsApp and send it to me. Lovely again for your teenagers. Today we're going to keep it simple. I'm just going to use that chat box, but in a different way. And this activity might be nice for your teens as well. So you're going to write the answer in the chat box. So in my class, one person writes, but they also nominate the next person who is going to write. So for example, what engages my young learners? I write the answer and I say, I think they like drawing. Daniela. And Daniela, you are going to write the next answer and you're going to nominate the next person. So you might write in the chat box, I think they like fun. Ed. And Ed is going to be the next person. So have a look. You've seen some names. So Lucia, you've got pictures. Can you nominate somebody else who can answer? So in this way, we have actually an answer chain. Students need to be focused on that chat box, find their name. If they see the name, and Nachi, excellent, you are nominated Catalina. Catalina sees her name and she types her answer. Everybody's watching and looking if they see their name, and then their name is there. They write the answer. Annabella, I think you've got a job to do as well. Good. So this is a way to use your chat box in a maybe more engaging way. The students are nominating the next person and they're all typing at the same time. Lots of ideas and everybody is fully involved. Lovely. Thank you for sharing all your ideas. I do think games, stories, dance. Great. Thanks, Karina, for nominating the next person. I'm going to stop you there. Costumes, Abune. Yes, that maybe goes with drama or acting. Songs, exactly. We've got them there as well. Chants, stories. And a very important one I want to highlight is that when you teach young learners, everything we do in the classroom needs to be meaningful. It could be meaningful related to the topic. It could be meaningful related to an activity that they recognize they have done before. They can see how it works, like a role play, because that's what you actually do at home, talking to two people. If things are not meaningful, they're not going to learn. Now, I hope you're able to hear me again. because you all disappeared. Oh, fabulous. Let's continue. It's going to be normal practice for us. You can hear me, you can't see me, but that's okay. Good. So we were talking about it needs to be meaningful. The activities need to be age appropriate. And then, of course, we need to make sure that what we are going to do is of the right level of challenge. So not too difficult because they get panicked, they get stressed. Not too easy because our students are going to not learn anything because they already know everything. So we really need to look for that healthy level of struggle where that's stress-free, where there's high challenge, where they need to think this is really where that learning is going to happen in the classroom. And I think so you're crushing +1 indeed. Here we have a huge challenge because what happened with 2020? Right, a COVID slide. I don't know if you are familiar with the expression, the COVID slide. No, it's an interesting one, Alina. It's maybe very much something in the US, the UK, Australia and New Zealand that we use in education. Normally, when we have kids that go on summer holidays for 2 or 3 months, there's a little bit of a summer drop back or drop down. They lose a little bit of their knowledge in mathematics and particularly reading skills and quite often in language skills. Now, when we look now, of course, our students didn't have a couple of weeks holiday. A lot of my learners haven't had proper classes for probably about 2 or 3 months. So their level of language, and particularly in reading skill, has dropped back hugely. So when you look at it here, you can see this is a forecast. This was written in April, research done in the US. You can see the younger the students, the less language knowledge or reading ability, the bigger that COVID slide is predicted to be. So the problem we are going to have with our students is not that they have lost 2 or 3 weeks of the knowledge that we gave them before the summer holidays. It means that our students have lost quite a bit of that knowledge, possibly 2 or 3 months of knowledge. So it's really impacting the level of English they bring to the classroom next week, last week, or the week after. Yeah, that's really something we need to keep in mind. It's not a normal school year we are starting. And the teachers in the UK, they did some research actually the beginning of this month. They said that they had just covered about 66% of the normal curriculum last year. So indeed, the students were about 3 months behind when they came back to their schools. Now, we're talking about state schools, private schools, maybe not so much language centers, but I do know, particularly in this region, all the education stopped literally for a couple of weeks. And in some schools, it became a couple of months. And with that, of course, we have the challenge of students working, studying from home. Now, I don't know if you have experienced this too. We have very keen learners, the ones that are doing all the courses online, maybe even get support from someone, get mum or dad or a caretaker to help. They're learning. And then at the other side, we've got students that for one reason or the other have not been able to keep learning without our support. Yes, so indeed, and it's a challenge for us all. So we come back to the classroom wanting to engage our learners, but all of a sudden they might all have different levels and different abilities. But still, our job is really to think about how can we engage all our learners, even though they might have had different experiences and therefore now different levels of English. Indeed, Availability of devices has been a problem. Students working with special education needs, they have maybe not gotten as much support as they needed to. So I think the ABCs of engagement, or the ABCs, are very important to keep in mind when we talk about engagement. And of course, you'll be thinking, what on earth are these ABCs? Right, I'm going to enlighten you. The first thing we need to do when we come back is really figure out where they are at. We need to assess our learners' current skills and abilities. And I'm not talking here about full-blown tests, about grading, about marking and results. I'm talking more about a softer form of assessment, pre-assessment, diagnostics, formative assessment, finding out how they are using the language and what language they're able to use, so we can identify that gap. We can see what we need to do next. So it's really important that we assess them, because we want to make sure that what we teach is able to stick to the prior knowledge. If we teach something that's too difficult, that's not possible. If I teach you a word and you don't even know the word in your first language, you cannot link it in your brain. You cannot store it. So assessment in a child-appropriate way, through learning activities that are appropriate for your students, their developmental level, you can actually modify what you're going to do with that textbook that you've been given. You can adapt it, make it easier, scaffold more, make it maybe more visual, whatever you need to do. Their prior level informs your next step. So that does mean that there might be a bit of adapting. Yeah. Now, how are you going to assess them? Because we don't want to make it too boring. Lots of familiar activities. I think you know all these activities already. Show and tell, absolutely one of my favorites. I bring you an item, could be I think we're back. Claudia, you said no sound. Can you hear me now? Yes, I know, Dahlia, too many interruptions, but it is what it is and we can't change it. So let's continue. Good. So show and tell, I'm not going to talk more about. True or false activity. Students don't know you're assessing their level, but it's a great way for you to assess their listening abilities and see if they can make meaning of what you say. Child appropriate. If you want to join in, you can. So when the answer is true, you're going to jump up. And when it's false, you're going to squat. A really good active activity, a bit of total physical response, and we can see if students understand what we say. Now, with you, I'm not going to use student sentences, but I could say, for example, the younger they start learning English, the better they will become. Show me, true or false? And of course, you're jumping up or you're squatting. I don't know what you're doing. I hope that some of you are moving your bodies. Good. And then I would say, to make learning happen, building on existing knowledge is key. Jump or squat. I see Claudia's jumping. Lovely. Good. So I think you get the idea. Now, you have teenagers, you don't want to do this. They can give a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If you use Zoom, they can use type T or F, or they can have a certain hand gesture when you use your camera. And I would go and ask some more questions. Yeah. Now, I'm not going to do them all with you because we can't see each other jump. But this is a really good way for us to see if they can make meaning and understand. So you're testing language in context, in a sentence, so they really have to process it. Yeah? Good. Now, if you want to test students' language more as a discrete item, then you might want to do this activity. So I'm going to see if they remember some of the words we did last year. So I want you to find something in your bedroom or in the house that is tiny. So hopefully your students run away, they go and find something, and they bring something back to you and they show it to the camera, and you can see maybe a tiny pencil or a hair clip. It doesn't really matter. You can test things like colors. I want you to find something which is red. I want you to find me a vegetable. Good, Simonetta, I want you to find me a tiny ball. I actually have a tiny ball in my hands, but you can't see it. So here we're testing again without putting students under pressure of assessment if they actually remember these words from last year. So very much child appropriate, and they love it because they're running around to the kitchen and the bedroom. They're trying to find these items that are red, have a cat on it, are made of plastic. I don't know what you've taught them. You can even do this with teenagers, and you might say, I want you to find something you got given that you would have never bought yourself. Fascinating what they come out with, t-shirts, jewelry, and it's really interesting to get them in groups and talk about this. Again, you listen in and you can actually see what language they're able to use. Now, if you only see your student once a week, if you're still teaching online, there's issues with Wi-Fi, you can do a scavenger hunt. As you can see here, there is 5 different tasks for every day. They can take a picture, they can write da 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 is purple, da 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 beeps, upload it for you on the Padlet, or they can upload it on Edmodo, the WhatsApp group, your classroom blog, whatever you use. Of course, this is not adapted to your learners, but you can just make it like this. And if you have teens, I quite like this activity. So I get them at the end of the week to pick one of these items they've selected, and then I want them to write about one item, but from its perspective. So here I have a fluffy dog, massive, maybe for my 8-year-olds. What has he experienced? He's got a terrible, boring life because he always sits on the cupboards because I do no longer play with him. Yeah, so a little bit of writing as an extension. The picture and the story can go on the Padlet. Everybody can see their work, and it's a very nice way for you to assess the language they're able to use. Yeah? Nice, simple activity, easy to make, doesn't cost us anything. That's important. Good. The other activity that I really like is I love to use images. I like to see what grammar my students remember. And often I get them to do dictations, but it's a bit boring. So we're going to do a beep dictation. So I'm going to say a sentence, but I will miss out one word. I might say beep, and my students need to write down the word in the chat box or on a mini whiteboard and show it to the screen, or in the classroom have the mini whiteboard up so I can see the words. And I'm going to review what they remember about past simple forms. I'm only going to focus on these irregular ones. So first of all, you get 30 seconds to look at the picture, either in their book or maybe I've got it on the PowerPoint at the IWB. And then I'm going to ask my students a question. Look at the picture and write down the words that I'm not saying for you guys today in the chat box. The animals beep to the city. The animals beep to the city. What would be the word for the beep today? They went to the city. Have a good look, Wanda. Look at my picture. Where are the animals? Are they in the city? Look at the picture. Is when the right answer? Oh, I am not sure. Alina, you have got it. They didn't go to the city. The animals beep to the farm. Where did they go? They indeed went to the farm. And then you could say, okay, let's have a look then. The farmer beep a banana. The farmer beep a banana. What's the farmer got in his hand? Does that look like a banana? He didn't have a banana. He doesn't have Good. I think we're back. Yes, we are experiencing technical issues. I have paid for my internet, I promise, Anka. Good. Yes, so let's move on. This is a student-friendly activity. You can also use electronic whiteboards if you have good internet connection with the students. So check out whiteboard.fi, a lovely website for formative assessment, because you can see all the students' whiteboards, but they only have their own to scribble on online. Yeah. Good. Beep dictation. Now, all these activities help you to keep assessing. And I'm not saying only assess at the beginning, because, of course, we need to assess throughout our courses, informally, formatively, to see how they are progressing, how their abilities are developing, and where they need more support. Yeah, that's just part of our job. Particularly in 2020, I think our job very much is to bridge that gap, because not all of our students will be at the same level, but we will maybe have the same textbook and the same materials for them. So we need to see how we can support our students who have dropped behind. So the B is from bridging that gap. How can we bridge the gap with our students? First of all, we need to again start where they are, find out the prior knowledge through your assessment, and then we need to give them support. Can be in different ways. Using pictures, I think, is very age appropriate. Giving students opportunities to work together in pairs or groups, very helpful. They're scaffolding, but it's not you who's scaffolding. The students are supporting each other. And then, of course, the way you set up an activity with more or less tips or choices, that is your real scaffolding, and modeling is super important here. So let me show you how you can use visuals to support. This activity, I think you might know, odd one out. So I get my students to check which word does not belong on this picture or in my slide. Which word is the strange one? Shoes. And of course I'm going to say, why? Chair. Why? Interesting. Now the beauty is there might not be one right answer, but if I only give them the words, it's much more difficult for students. Now they can see the picture with the words, dual coding, easier to remember. And if they didn't remember what a chair was, now they see the picture and they go, oh yeah, chair, I remember. Yeah, so you're really helping them. Fish, interesting. Water, nice one, lives in the water. The rest is on land. If you look at phonics, think about a phonics activity where you're looking at sounds. Chera says, yes, I think a chair is a different sound. Simonetta, you've got it. Although I also liked what my niece said, I think it's a fish, because shoes are made of leather, a chair can be made of leather, a sheep becomes leather, but the fish will never be. So this is really good higher order thinking. And you can do the same with any words that come in from your course book and that you just want to give them a little bit more support with. Yeah, I don't know what you think of this one. I think here actually you can select any creature that doesn't belong, because one lives in the water, one is a pet, one is endangered, and a snake is not a mammal. So there is lots of good answers here, lots of thinking. You could actually use this to assess as well, of course, see what language they produce to justify their answer. Yeah, indeed, as domestic, a dog is the only one, hopefully, although a snake you might have in your house as well. But a whale indeed lives in the water. But I think you understand how pictures help our students here. Good. Now, when you look at collaborating, we often use an activity that you all know. I'm pretty sure. Think, pair, share. Very important to give your students some thinking time so they can process the question, put it into English and make a sentence to give back to you. The pair can give them confidence when they check, and then you can share the answer with the whole class. Now here again, I think the problem is that sometimes some groups don't know, have not enough language there. So to adapt this activity and enhance that collaboration, give them more opportunities, you can actually say, okay pair, turn to another pair, Or put the pairs now in the breakout room with 4 and share the answers again. So here they are really helping each other, making meaning and sharing a little bit more to get more understanding of what they're doing. Yes, it's a really nice way when you ask them a question. Another way, of course, to support them reading is one that my students struggle with. I often get them to read maybe a short story or even a paragraph. Then I want them to stop. I want them to think about, what did I read? Can I retell in my own head, in my own words? Good. That's the ponder stage, and then I get them to turn to their elbow buddy, or I put them in the breakout room with another student, and they're going to retell what they just read together. And that way they're helping each other, making meaning of the story. Yeah, so there is collaboration, which is actually a way of scaffolding. So read a little bit, stop, think about what you read, think about how can I say this in my own words, retell it to your buddy. That's a really nice way to give them support, particularly weaker students in reading. Yeah. Collaboration. And the last one, I think, is a really important one to support your students to bridge that gap. Model. And modeling is definitely underused, but even when you teach IELTS, when you teach writing, IELTS, scaffolding, teenagers, modeling is key. If you don't know what's expected of you, how can you succeed? So give them a model of the writing you want them to do. Give them a model of the speaking task. So for example, here I want my students to talk about their favorite animal. I record myself talking about my favorite animal, what it is and why. Right. It's becoming a habit now, isn't it? Let's just continue and not even talk about it. I have no idea what's happening. Good. Modeling, super important. A way I model as well with my students is when we drill, because a lot of my students seem to just forget words. They're out of the habit of recalling what we do. They need more time. So what you can do is show them the sentence, and secretly when we drill, we've got a snake in our classroom at school. We've got a snake in our classroom at school. We've got a what was it again? Snake in our classroom at school. We've we've got a snake in our classroom at school. We've got a... So slowly my whole sentence disappears. They're still practicing intonation and sentence stress, but there is a little bit of a scaffold for them. And you can actually divide your class in halves, A or B, I don't know, boys or girls, age group, a row in the back, row the front, and then they can actually see if they remember. So it's a scaffolded drill in that way, because that might help our students all to succeed in the classroom. Yeah, so good. And a little quote about modeling. Right, we're going to go a little bit over time. I'm just looking at Anka if I can get another 5 or 10 minutes to go and talk about my C. Lovely, thank you. So we had assessed them. Then think about how you can bridge that gap with all those different activities. And then, of course, I think this is super important with your students, that you create a community of care. If young learners, but even adults, if we don't feel safe in our classroom, if we don't feel a sense of belonging and feel that we can actually try to use our voice and say something, even if it's wrong, if they don't feel safe, there is no learning happening. Your brain is thinking fight or flight. It's not able to take in anything that you do with the best intentions in your classroom if they don't feel safe. So the first thing I really think we need to make sure that our students know that we care about them. So a very simple, warmer activity that we did before, that connector. What did you do in your holiday? What's your favorite animal? Talk about one thing that you did this weekend. That really shows you ask questions. You are interested. You are a co-partner in the process. You are a learning partner. It's not them and us. It's us as a team, right? So very important. Let them know that you care about them. And I think there's different ways, many different ways of doing this, but I'm just trying to give you a few of my ideas. A culture of mistakes. I'm going to talk about this quickly with you. Make sure that your students know that they can make mistakes. Actually, mistakes is not something that is failure. It's feedback. It's the pathway to success. If you don't try, if you don't make mistakes, possibly you could argue you're not learning. So mistakes are welcome. I'm really happy if they make them. They're stepping stones to the future of good language use. They're not stumbling blocks. So make sure that they know that you don't get upset with them. It's absolutely fine. Yeah. And then also, I think our students need to understand that learning is a process. And sometimes in our head, we get shark thoughts. I'm bad, I can't do this, I'm not good, I'm useless. But actually, we need dolphin thoughts. I can't do this yet. Oh, but maybe if I try again, I get better. Yeah, so I want my students, if you're familiar with this, to sort of develop a growth mindset. So it's Carol Dweck's theory of growth mindset. Everything is a learning process. There is no failure. Feedback, learn and try again. So here I get my students to look at all these different words. Even in the first language you can do this, and get students to decide, is this a positive thought, a dolphin thought that helps me grow, or is it a very dark shark thought that's not helpful for my learning? So the students choose, they put them in different categories, and then of course in the classroom we're going to focus indeed on that positive mindset. It's not a problem if it didn't go well. Let's try again. It's okay to ask your friends or me for help, or even your mum. This is how we learn. So really making sure that you show that you care, and this is normal part of the process of learning. And another one I absolutely love is create some more empathy, those social emotional intelligence we need to develop. Often I use stories, and with the story I might say, okay, this poor giraffe, everybody's laughing at him because he can't dance. So how does he feel? What did Gerald do? Write it in the left foot. And everybody was laughing at him. How do you think he felt? Write the words in the toes. He was embarrassed. He was sad. He was unhappy. He wanted to cry. He was depressed. Okay, now let's have a look then on the right foot. What do you think Gerald wants us to say? How does he want to feel? 5 positive adjectives. And then think about Gerald, how he wants to be treated. I want my friends to say, okay, I can't dance yet, but I will learn. I want my friend to like my funny dance. So they actually just have to think about people are different. We can't do everything well. How would you respond? How would you feel? So they're really stepping in Gerald's feet in that way and developing that thinking of empathy, helping each other, allowing things to be different, and we're not all developing at the same time. Yeah, also walking in their shoes, I think, but Gerald is not wearing shoes. So walk his walk, I've said here. Good. And the last one, I think, looking at the students we have, some of the students have had a very hard time at home. Some of the students maybe are still working from home on one computer. Allow them some choice. They're not all in the right mindset to study at this moment as hard as they normally do. They might want an easy activity today and do something more difficult tomorrow. So give them a choice board. Oh, I hope that was the last time. We're going to finish it off now. Good. Right. So can you remember in 2020, when we go back to the classroom, first thing we need to do is assess them. Then the B, you have to make sure that you bridge that gap that you see with your learners, support them, think about all those tools that you can use. Then make sure that you create a community of care, that your students know this is okay, I am here for you. And then I think there is one that we often forget. Now I said A, B, C, but there is actually also a D. And I think we often forget about ourselves. Make sure as a teacher that you take care of yourself. Self-care, I think, is really important because, as the saying goes, you can't pour from an empty cup. And particularly this year, we will get some challenges to get students up to the level they're expected to be. So make sure that you don't forget about yourself. Go for your walk. Go for yoga. Do whatever you need to do to make sure you keep thinking about your own energy levels, your own positive thoughts. Now, if you're not familiar, this is a fabulous website. It's an Action for Happiness calendar. I print it out every month, and there is one thing that you can do every day. It could be to say hello, to give someone a call, to think about 2 positive things. They also have action calendars for children on this website, because I do think we need to keep some positive thought in these challenging times. Now, on that note, I think we survived. Didn't make it completely with Adobe, but we got through. I hope that there's 2 things that make you happy during the conference today, and maybe even in this session. I'm so sorry for all the Adobe troubles. It wasn't my friend today. My 2 things that made me happy today was my hot chocolate before we started, and Fisher International for inviting me, and you teachers being here and being so incredibly patient with all these technical issues. So thank you so much for being here and sharing. And oh, lovely, Diana, thank you. And I'm so sorry for all the stresses we had. You will get the presentations. You've got my details. So if there's anything else you want to ask about or connect with me, please feel free, and I'm going to wish you all the best for the new school year. So thank you so much for all your hard work. I think you've got a break now, so thank you. Enjoy the rest of the conference today and tomorrow, and thank you, Anka, for staying with me. Oh, done for today. Oh, so I can only say thank you and stay in touch, and we'll be back. Thank you. Bye-bye.